The film opens with a breathtaking view of paradise, palm trees, and gorgeous sunshine with still, clear waterways threading between the houses. Two women are preparing a table out on a dock, ready for what looks to be a fancy romantic meal. One of them, Alexandra, is heavily pregnant and complaining that she can't have a drink or let loose. It seems like the baby is very overdue. Her friend Olivia reassures her that the baby will be out soon, and thanks her for her help in setting everything up and doing the cooking, especially since she's had to delay filming her YouTube video for it. It seems as though she's an influencer who makes life hack videos online. Alexandra laughs off the praise, claiming her subscribers can wait. Both of them are excited because they believe that Olivia's boyfriend Ben is going to propose to her tonight. Olivia warns her to calm down, because they don't know anything for sure, but both friends struggle to contain themselves at the thought of her getting engaged. Alexandra leaves, wishing Olivia good luck and reminding her to call her later with the details. It's not long before Ben arrives, and Olivia babbles nervously, giggling and excited. However, Ben doesn't seem to be in a very good mood, which doesn't bode well for what Olivia thought their dinner might be about. The pair sit down and Ben reveals what he had to tell her. It turns out he's the manager of Olivia's father's hotel, which was sold off recently when her father passed, and she works there as an events coordinator. However, the new owners have decided to bring in someone else over her head who will be her new boss. Olivia's world flips upside down in a matter of minutes, going from an expected proposal to finding out she's losing her job. She stands up angrily, defending herself, but Ben doesn't see what the big deal is. Her family is extremely wealthy, so she doesn't need the work, and it's out of his hands anyway. The new CEO has decided he wants to distance the hotel from the way Olivia's father managed things. She accuses him of using her as a scapegoat, since he is also a direct link to the old management. But he retorts that he's wanted to change things for a long time anyway, and he often clashed with her father when it came to business decisions. Shocked and heartbroken, Olivia is trying to process it all when Ben pipes up that it's a good thing for them in the long run, because he'll have sway with the new management. He takes her hand, but she wrenches it back from him and declares that she's quitting, because she doesn't want to see them change everything about the hotel her father loved, and she's through with him, as well, having seen his true colors. 1 year later, Olivia is working as a freelance events coordinator. She's talking on the phone with a potential client, but they're fixated on wanting the Graham Hotel, her father's old hotel, as their venue, so she drops the call unhappily, knowing that she won't be able to help them. She knocks on Alexandra's door, interrupting her as she tries to film a new life hack video for her brand Living Easy, with almost 1-year-old baby Tyler beside her. Alexandra finishes off her video with an advertisement for a cruise. She's partnered with the cruise line and will be on board doing a live demonstration and touting some of the products associated with her channel. She urges her subscribers to come and meet her if they want to buy some of the incredible life hack merchandise for themselves, then signs off as Olivia applauds her. Alexandra thanks her for coming at such short notice and lets her know that the event planner she hired for the cruise is a total disaster. Alexandra knows Olivia's free, so she's fired the original coordinator. She begs Olivia for her help, because this is a high-profile event where there will be a lot of press attending. It could be her big break into the mainstream product markets, so she needs it to go well and she doesn't trust anyone else to take over. It's in 3 weeks, so Olivia starts to panic, but accepts the job because she wants to make sure her friend succeeds. On the cruise ship, a man called Tony is giving a surfing demonstration on the deck, to the cheers and applause of a gathered crowd. A manager calls him over, praising his work ethic, and lets him know that there's some good news. The current cruise director for the ship, Evan, has been called elsewhere at the last minute, and Tony, as assistant cruise director, is being promoted on a trial basis for one sail to see if he's got the mettle for full promotion. Tony's ecstatic, as this is exactly the opportunity he's been waiting for, and is determined to show that he's more than ready to take it on. The manager grins excitedly as she knows how much he wants it, and is fully behind him, having been the one that convinced the corporate HQ to give him a chance. Tony will be the cruise director on the same cruise on which Olivia will be planning Alexandra's press event. Olivia and Alexandra are putting together some last-minute details the day before they leave, and Olivia mentions she needs to go and see her mother, May, who's invited her for dinner. Just as she's about to head off, though, they receive a call from the celebrity chef Alexandra has hired for the event, Preston Smythe. He's irritable and entitled, informing the women that he needs to change the plans on short notice, and he expects they'll accommodate him. He makes it clear that there's no other option if they want him to participate. Olivia agrees to everything he asks for, knowing that his presence is necessary for Alexandra's success, and when he hangs up, they exchange a terrified glance. It's certainly going to be interesting working with him. Olivia arrives at her mother's house and finds that she's had a makeover. She's stunned at the transformation, and elated that she's taking care of herself so well, as she hasn't been in the best way since the loss of her husband. May doesn't get a chance to explain, though, because moments later a man called Wes appears from the kitchen unexpectedly. Olivia didn't know her mother was seeing someone, so she's taken aback. The three of them sit down together and Wes reveals that he also lost his wife a couple of years ago. He and May met at church recently and got together shortly afterward. Olivia does not take the news well, But she doesn't want to have an outburst in front of Wes, so she blurts out that she wants her mother to come on the cruise with her. She's desperate for any excuse to get her away from her new beau. Surprised, but not wanting to disappoint her daughter, May somewhat reluctantly agrees to come along and help. In line to get on board, Olivia is frantically calling her mother, trying to find out where she is. Tony, queuing up behind her disguised as a vacationer, tries to ease her stress by cracking a few jokes. Initially, she's brusque with him, shrugging off his attempts at conversation and his odd admiration of the ship, claiming she's there to work and not to meet people. However, when he reveals that he's a member of staff, her attitude shifts, understanding that he was just doing his job by trying to improve her experience. Olivia's mother arrives, shouldering through the line, just as Tony is led out of the queue with his shopping by a member of security who takes him on board. She watches him go, her interest suddenly piqued. May catches sight of him as well, but Olivia doesn't reveal anything about their interaction, focusing instead on her mother's smartphone and asking how she learned to use one. It seems like Wes has been a good influence on her already, not that Olivia is willing to see it. The pair head on board as Olivia explains Alexandra's event and what they'll be needed for. She emphasizes how important it is for both of them for everything to go right. If Alexandra gets the publicity she's hoping for with this, it could also be the key to her managing to shine a spotlight on herself as the event manager and get her business going. May reassures her that everything will go perfectly. Just as Wes arrives, claiming he couldn't bear to be away from her. He's booked his cabin so he can join their trip. May is flattered and excited that her new flame will be joining them to help out. Olivia, though, is less than thrilled to see him. Already, in her opinion, things have gotten off to a bad start. Tony, now dressed in a suit in his role as the cruise director, heads into the bar to chat with his friend Stu, the bartender. Stu reminds him that corporate will be watching this week, but Tony isn't afraid, knowing he's up to the job. The emergency drill comes over the intercom, instructing all guests to go to the muster point, standard procedure so they know where to go in case there is an actual emergency down the line. May gets up to go, but Olivia brushes it off, claiming it's only for guests and she's busy prepping, as she has to meet the cruise director Evan in an hour. Not long after, there's a knock at the door and Tony appears, instructing Olivia that emergencies don't care if someone has a lot of work to do. He's not going to be responsible for her not knowing where to go, so if she refuses to go to the drill, she'll be asked to disembark. Irritated at the interruption, Olivia reluctantly complies, asking for Tony's name and intending to report him to Evan. However, she gets another unwelcome surprise when he reveals cheerily that he's the new cruise director, as Evan was moved to another ship. He's read up on her in the Living Easy event, so he knows exactly who she is. Olivia's not happy to be blindsided once again, as the carefully arranged pieces of her plan are starting to come loose. The Harmony of the Seas pulls out of the dock and Olivia quickly finds Tony as he's heading into his office. Tony is entirely different from Evan, wanting to get involved in everything, spend time with the guests, and change up the way things have been, because he wants to put his mark on his maiden voyage as the cruise director. Olivia hands him the binder she's prepared, but Tony informs her the plans are going to have to change because he's introduced some new activities that are going to clash with the Living Easy event. Olivia tries to be polite, keeping up with him and reminding him that everything had already been approved, but Tony is stubborn and won't listen. They get to the office and meet a reporter named Miles, who is waiting there for Tony. He's been assigned to cover the cruise, so he's crucial to Tony's success in his trial. It turns out he and Olivia are old friends, as she greets him enthusiastically. The two of them worked together in the past and even went on a date once, although the timing didn't work out between them. Miles grins at her, excited to have another opportunity to reconnect, as Tony pleasantly offers his knowledge and advice, wanting to get on the man's good side. Miles leaves the pair alone and Tony shows her his desk, offering her the space next to him. However, Olivia is annoyed at him for changing the schedule on her and rejects it, claiming she'll set herself up elsewhere. Tony exhales as she walks off, pulling out the binder and shaking his head. Olivia meets her mother on deck and asks her to supervise the staff for the cocktail reception. May is used to her daughter's stressful antics and assures her that she's on the job. Just then, a video appears on the big screen. It's Tony, welcoming everyone on board. May is surprised that the man she saw Olivia chatting to is the cruise director, and quickly picks up on her not-so-thrilled reaction at seeing him. Later, Tony finds Olivia and admits that he Googled her after reading the binder, so he'd have a better idea of her background. She's even more annoyed that he looked her up without knowing anything about her, bored of being constantly associated with her family rather than for her own merits. He accuses her of being rigid, and offers to help her be more flexible, while she insists she's just thorough and structured. Deciding not to argue the point further, he lets her know he's found the perfect location for the event. For the first time since arriving on board, Olivia is thrilled when they arrive. Tony smiles at her excitement. He's managed to secure the restaurant for them, which Evan had initially told them they couldn't use. They just need to be out by 3 p.m. Olivia is ecstatic, as this will make everything much easier, and she starts to feel better about working with Tony. He makes her promise to keep to the 3 p.m. deadline, and she teases him about his strictness after calling her rigid, and he laughs. It seems that the two might have finally struck a good balance. That night, May is helping Olivia get ready for the cocktail reception, while Olivia takes the moment while they are alone to grill her about Wes. It turns out that her concern stems from her belief that Wes is after her mother's money. May appeals to her daughter to trust her judgment and focus on her work, instead of May's relationship. Olivia reluctantly agrees, but it's clear she still doesn't like Wes. He's guilty until proven innocent. She's still got a lot of hang-ups after her relationship with Ben ended so poorly, with him taking advantage and then removing her when she was the one who got him the job with her father, and she's projecting that onto her mother. Wes arrives to take May to dinner as Olivia heads off for the reception. The following morning, Tony is taking part in Alexandra's exercise class, the beginning of the Living Easy event, along with Wes and May. Olivia is venting to her friend about Wes, but Alexandra doesn't share her friend's concern. Meanwhile, Stu is chatting to Tony, remarking on the similarities between Olivia and Tony's ex, Eve, who also used to work on the ship with them. Tony isn't in the mood to hear it, clearly still carrying baggage from the old relationship, and insists there's nothing to Stu's theory. Alexandra points out Miles to Olivia, but although she grins, she protests that she's trying to be professional on this trip, not bring up the past. From the upper deck, Olivia sees Wes hugging a young woman with dark hair. She's immediately suspicious about the interaction, given his last-minute arrival on the ship. Who is this woman to him? Why is she on board, and why is he meeting with her? She can't dwell on it right then, though, as she has the event to worry about. Down in the restaurant, Alexandra is presenting her new book and grinning for the cameras and the assembled crowd, as Tony and Olivia pose together. He nudges her and jokes about how successful the event is, and she begrudgingly thanks him for relocating it. He heads off, but not before reminding her once again of the 3 p.m. deadline. However, Olivia fails to manage time properly, and Tony receives a stern warning from the ship manager about the transgression. He rushes back off to the restaurant, annoyed, and Olivia apologizes profusely that she didn't account for the queue and a time. He helps her clean up quickly and offers his suggestions for the next event, which surprisingly, she accepts. He's glad that she's finally willing to depart from her binder schedule and listen to him. Later, Miles is interviewing Olivia about her life since leaving the Graham Hotel. Initially, she's unwilling to tell him about what happened, but he admits he already knew about it all because he didn't expose on it after they changed management. She insists that she's better off now, because she's running her own business. She and Miles are flirting when Tony turns up, and she pointedly asks him what he wants, since he ruined the moment a little. He informs her there's been a complication with collecting Preston Smythe, but he's going to go and pick him up himself to ensure it goes smoothly. Olivia is worried, as she knows the chef's reputation. The next morning, Olivia discovers that her mother has gone ziplining with Wes, so she goes to meet Alexandra, who's incredibly excited about all the reviews she's getting. She's sure that if the crossover with Preston goes well, she'll probably land a TV show from it. Olivia promises her she's going to pick the chef up and make sure it all goes smoothly, but Alexandra is more worried about her friend, pressing her to take some time out and distress. Olivia agrees to get a massage, but the whole time, she's taking notes on her tablet. She meets Miles later on, but they're once again interrupted by Tony, who drags her aside and informs her that Preston Smythe didn't get on the plane and won't be at the port. Olivia tries to make several calls, but none of them get through, and immediately panics, knowing that having the chef at the event the next day is crucial to Alexandra's ratings and chances of getting noticed. They've promised everyone a celebrity guest, so they can't suddenly change the plans. Tony tries to reassure her, promising her that he's a solver and he can fix the situation somehow. He takes her up to the highest deck, encouraging her to look out over the ocean. He always goes up there to relax his nerves. At first, Olivia doesn't buy it, but then she begins to vent, letting out her stress, and Tony listens patiently, encouraging her to let go of the stiff structure she's used to and allow herself some room to breathe. He loves the unknown, because anything can happen and it's always a new adventure, a new problem to solve, a new path to find. He asks her about her life. She admits that the reason she works so hard is because everyone believes that no matter how good she is, or how much she makes, or how much success she finds, it'll only be because of her family, not because of her merit. Tony knows how she feels, having come from nothing and having to work twice as hard to have made a name for himself. He apologizes to Olivia for judging her, as he begins to see her in a new light following her confession. She, too, apologizes for her behavior, and the atmosphere shifts between them. It seems like they're finally beginning to understand each other. The following day, the day of the big event, Tony and Stu are overseeing things at the bar. Stu comments to Tony that he was out late the night before, just as Alexandra is grilling Olivia about the same thing. Of course, they were up on the deck talking until late. Alexandra, though, gets the wrong end of the stick and believes it's Miles that Olivia was out with. At Olivia's surprised reaction, Alexandra's eyes go wide as she realizes it was Tony. Olivia splutters that it was work, even as Tony says the same thing to Stu. Neither friend believes the story, though, each teasing about the budding relationship even as the pair insist they're focusing on their respective work. Alexandra begins to see people arriving for the event during her morning workout session and panics about Preston's non-arrival. She's anticipating having so many negative reviews because she didn't keep her promise. Olivia promises that he'll be there. It's just a reshuffling of the schedule and Alexandra just has to hold on and apologize for the short delay. Her friend believes her, not knowing that Olivia is going off of her blind faith in Tony's promise to fix things, and nothing else. The man himself approaches and takes up the mic, offering the unhappy guests one-on-one surfing sessions as an apology, which seems to appease them. Later, she's sitting up on the deck hiding away from Alexandra because she feels guilty for lying. Tony finds her and promises once again that he'll work things out. She thanks him for his help, remembering how nice it is to be able to rely on someone else, and admits that she's been working alone for so long to prove herself to her ex-boyfriend. Tony recounts his own experience with relationships, wherein his ex-Eve didn't want to continue working on the ship so she took a job onshore, and he was prepared to give up his career to join her, but at the last minute, she broke up with him. He was luckily able to undo his resignation and hang on to his career, but it set him back a lot, and it hurt that he was willing to give up doing what he loved for her, but she didn't even want him. He professes that he's glad about it in the end, because he got to stay on the cruise lines and do what he loves, making people happy. However, Olivia believes that Tony deserves someone to make him happy too. Preston calls them at that moment and informs Olivia that he won't be coming. He's caught up with his new restaurant and had to change his plans. He hangs up before they can even say anything. Devastated, Olivia looks over at Tony, not sure what to do. The two make their way down to the main deck, discussing their options, but Tony is still optimistic that they'll be able to make it work, despite Olivia completely freaking out on him. The pair of them pace back and forth, trying to come up with ideas about what to do. Tony suggests that he could impersonate Preston. They'll have him act the part, do a beat me at my own dish competition, and pretend like it was always meant to be a mock show. Olivia is skeptical, but when they pitch the idea to Alexandra, she thinks it could work if they steer into the skid. She's a professional at cooking, though, so if they have a guest judge the competition, she'll win in round one. Tony suggests he faces off against Olivia instead, and she can also play a character. Olivia wants to protest, but Alexandra latches onto the idea and she ends up unable to decline. The next morning, they're doing a practice run, and Tony tries to get Olivia in the mood, pulling her into a fun little dance to get her performing. There's a clear tension between them, though, and they pause in the middle of the twirl, locking eyes. They hurriedly part and continue with the show, awkwardly diffusing the tension, to Alexandra's amusement. As Olivia gets more and more into character as Maggie from Tennessee, she begins to enjoy herself, rising to Tony's challenge in the preview video, and putting on a great performance. It's the first time she's let loose since they started the trip. Later that night, Olivia sits with May, who has organized everything the way her daughter requested for the shoot, and tries to reassure her once again that it's all under control. Olivia asks her mother whether she likes Wes, and May pleads with her to give him a chance, because she thinks they'll get along if Olivia is willing to try. Olivia remembers the hug she saw, but doesn't want to get in the way of her mother's life anymore, so she agrees. The following morning, Olivia and Tony are sharing coffees before the performance. He admits his fears about the cruise line, deciding he isn't fit to be a full-time director yet. But Olivia allays them and surprises him by dumping her binder in the bin. She's ready to adjust to his line of thinking, going with the flow and working out solutions rather than pre-planning every moment. Enthused, Tony listens as she reveals that she's finally ready to let go of all the baggage with her ex. It would make her happy if she could just forget about everything she's been holding on to and try to look ahead. Tony grabs her hand, because making people happy is his job, and leads her to the zipline, thinking it could be just what she needs to get out of her head. Olivia protests, afraid, but Tony convinces her to give it a try. Leave the hotel and Ben and everything else at the beginning of the zipline, and get to the other side as a brand new, free Olivia who's unburdened by her past. He promises to wait for her at the end and gives her a friendly pat of encouragement. She's more terrified than she's ever been, but she trusts Tony, so she lets herself go and runs out the other side, rushing up to hug Tony in her glee. She's pumped up and readier than ever to make this event a success. Later on, though, in a moment alone, she spots Wes with the mysterious woman once again, making their way along the dock. She's troubled and doesn't know whether or not to tell her mother. She sits alone to think about what to do when Wes approaches her. She asks him bluntly why he's dating her mother, accusing him of going after her money. Wes is disappointed that Olivia would think that about him, but answers her question patiently, assuring her that he has more than enough of his own money and he doesn't need the Graham fortune. She challenges him about the woman she saw him with, and he explains that it's the daughter of one of his old friends, who happens to be on a trip with her husband. Seeing that Wes is genuine, Olivia finally decides to give him a real chance and accepts that he just wants to be with May. The following day, it's finally time for the cookout show. Despite the absence of the real Preston, it goes well and the crowd seems to be happy. Tony acts perfectly in character. Olivia thanks him for all his help as they clean everything up, happy that the event worked out despite everything. Realizing that this might be the last moment they spend together, on a sudden whim Tony asks her to go to the closing show that night, promising to reserve her a table. Olivia agrees without hesitation, even though he's nervously blabbering, and he grins and departs. Alexandra hints that Tony likes her, making Olivia blush because she's beginning to like him, too. Miles, though, is wrapping up his report on the event and sees the interaction between them. He still likes Olivia and isn't ready to give up on her so easily. He approaches the girls with good news. The online comments are amazing and it looks like Alexandra might have secured her shot. He asks hesitantly if he can go along with them to the dinner and, unable to refuse, Olivia nods. When he heads off, Alexandra nudges her friend, because it seems like she's now got 2 men after her. Olivia rolls her eyes. The ship manager informs Tony that the singer he's organized for the closing show is unfortunately sick and won't be able to perform. The news doesn't faze him, he takes it in his stride, promising her he's got the situation in hand. At the trivia quiz before the show, Olivia has the winning answer, and May comments that it feels just like it did when they used to have board game nights with her father. She suggests they start the tradition back up as a family, causing Wes to smile. At the bar that evening, dressed and ready for the show, Olivia is having doubts about Miles. She doesn't feel the spark with him, not the way she does with Tony, although she hasn't admitted it to anyone yet, even herself. Alexandra urges her to give it time, not realizing her friend's already made a decision. Tony announces that the singer is sick, then unexpectedly breaks into song himself, singing a medley of love songs almost directly to Olivia, who's sitting in the front row. Miles looks over anxiously from the bar, where he's waiting for their drinks. After the song, everyone gets up to dance, and May and Wes leave Olivia alone. Tony is quick to scoop her up, pulling her onto the floor with him, where she expresses how impressed she is with his singing voice. The pair joke around as they dance. When Miles finally returns from the bar with the drinks, he's disappointed to see Olivia already up and dancing with Tony. The pair don't even notice him, though, they're so caught up in their conversation. After the show, Miles and Olivia are walking along the deck, Miles still trying to shoot his shot. Tony and Stu are playing mini-golf, but Tony isn't paying attention. Instead, he's staring at Olivia as she walks past. Stu nudges him, aware that his friend is really more in love with Olivia than he cares to admit. But Tony firmly convinces himself that it'll only end badly. He belongs on the ship, and she's going to get off and continue with her life. He determinedly tries to focus on the game and forget how much his heart hurts at the thought. Miles stops Olivia and asks her for a photo to go with the article, to show the Graham Hotel what they're missing. She's embarrassed, though, and thanks him for writing about the event, but tells him firmly that she needs to get back to her mom. The following morning, he tries one last time to ask her to dinner, even telling her she doesn't have to reply, but just to think about it, because he never took the chance before and he always wondered what if. Olivia, watching Tony giving instructions below them, can't bear to turn him down, but knows she can't accept, so she makes her excuses and leaves abruptly. She heads to the spa to relax, and this time she doesn't have her emails with her. She stares down at a lotus flower, reminding her of Tony and his relaxed way of life, and knows she has a decision to make. That night, Olivia finds Tony up on the high deck once more. He explains that he's always in motion, always busy, but despite everything he thinks this cruise has gone well and he feels like for the first time he knows exactly where he's going. Olivia smiles teasingly, and the pair exchange flirtatious banter, acknowledging the building romance between them. Unable to wait anymore, Tony leans in and kisses her eagerly, and they share a private moment right up there on the deck, hidden away from the rest of the world. The next day, though, the moment is brought into harsh reality. Olivia is freaking out to Alexandra about having kissed Tony, when she knows it's only going to end in a couple of days, while Tony repeats the same mantra to Stu. Stu reiterates to his friend that he's got time off between voyages, and he's only making himself unavailable because he's afraid of being hurt. Tony soundly rejects the notion, leaving Stu frustrated that his friend refuses to be happy. At the Living Easy event that day, it's a guest cookout, but the ship manager arrives to tell Tony that they have disappointed guests who didn't realize that the location had been moved outdoors. He protests that he made announcements, but she shakes her head, disappointed. Olivia overhears the conversation and pulls Tony aside, determined not to let him get down on himself because they only have one day left together, and she wants it to be a good one. As May and Olivia prepare to disembark, Olivia tells her mother that she approves of Wes. May is glad to hear it, but knows that her daughter has something on her mind. Olivia reveals that she's been thinking about what it would be like to have a relationship with Tony, but his geographical unavailability makes the logistics impossible. She realizes that maybe she's still not ready to have a real relationship, because she couldn't bring herself to give things a shot with Miles, who is a feasible option, but she fell for Tony when she knew things wouldn't go anywhere. May, though, believes that Olivia should just focus on what or who would make her happy. The two men are conversing as Miles finishes up his article with an interview, and Olivia waves to them from the balcony, still torn with indecision. Miles approaches her not long after as she stands staring out over the railing. He reminds her how much success she's going to get when she gets off the ship, but Olivia isn't even sure she wants it anymore. This whole trip has thrown her for a loop and she needs to figure out who she is and what will make her happy. Miles continues to press her, revealing he knows about her feelings for Tony, but he doesn't think they're real. Olivia is silent, unaware that Tony is overhearing the conversation. Miles asks her out once again, but Tony doesn't wait to hear the response, convinced that Olivia has given up on him. Olivia doesn't reply to Miles, though, and he walks away disappointed once again. Olivia suddenly has a brainwave and grabs the comment cards which Alexandra's guests left behind at the event. All of them are extremely complimentary of Tony and his attitude, so she runs to the ship manager to hand them over, begging her to consider them when it comes to Tony's future as a cruise director. The manager goes to the office and finds Tony there, worried. It seems like Olivia's gambit worked, because she apologizes for putting him under undue pressure and informs him that corporate is willing to offer him a full contract. Delighted, Tony shakes her hand, realizing that his dream has finally come true. Olivia finds Tony, enthusiastically rushing up to him and congratulating him on the job offer. He's short with her, though, because he still thinks she's given him up for Miles. He chokes on his words as he wishes her well, trying to hide how upset he is at the thought. Olivia is confused, unaware he overheard anything, and doesn't know why his attitude has suddenly changed. He maintains that she's just another guest to him, even though both of them know it's a lie, and she realizes he doesn't want anything to do with her. Hurt and ashamed, she walks away. The following morning, everyone disembarks from the ship. Tony wraps up his goodbye video and then watches a reel of photos from the cruise, seeing himself and Olivia together in every one. He realizes that the ship won't be home without her on it, and comes up with a crazy plan. He dashes everywhere looking for Olivia, calling her several times, but can't find her anywhere. Just when he's afraid she's walked out of his life forever, he spots her on the lower deck, gazing out over the ocean. He approaches her, remarking about the beauty of the sea, and Olivia herself. He admits that nobody has ever gotten to him the way she has, and steps closer, waiting for permission. He's not ready to give her up. They kiss, and with that, Tony tells her his plan, a way they can stay together, if it's what she wants to. In the following scene, a new set of guests have embarked, and it's murder mystery night in the showroom, hosted by Tony and his new group coordinator, Olivia. She grins at him as they present the show, the ship manager watching with a smile in the background. Then the pair head out to their secret spot on the high deck, watching the sunset and holding each other, excited for their new lives together at sea.